Story 1. One person is extremely annoyed by and corrects the mundane things that the other says and does. Story 2. When one person completely changes their personality to suit the other, it can have significant consequences. One of my friends started dating a man who, in my opinion, was unpleasant. He seemed to feel superior to others, was condescending to his employees, and rude to waitstaff. My friend transformed from a confident professional woman into a submissive shadow of herself. I suspected she would not maintain this facade indefinitely, and sure enough, as soon as they were married and she began expressing her opinions, everything fell apart. They were divorced within a year, which likely did not surprise anyone who knew her. Story 3. They constantly express their love for each other on social media. After some time, you will find no trace of that initial affection in their profiles until they find another partner, and the cycle starts again. Story 4. At a wedding I attended, when it was time for the couple to exchange vows, the groom mentioned bringing out a special guest, and the bride interrupted, saying, "No, we discussed this. I will walk out." He intended to have his ventriloquist dummy deliver his vows. He must have repeatedly introduced the dummy in inappropriate situations, as she left him 3 months later. Story 5. Statistics show that couples who frequently share details about their relationship on social media are more likely to separate. Story 6. My uncle is dating a young girl from another country. I asked him the other day when she moved to the United States, and he said, "I don't know. Don't ask me that." Story 7. Most couples I have seen as social media couples often end up having serious relationship problems. We usually become aware of this during a public breakup or when one partner harms the other. Story 8. Eye rolling symbolizes contempt and is a strong predictor of relationship failure, as presented by John Gottman, a researcher of relationships. He identifies contempt as one of the 4 horsemen leading to marital dissolution. Story 9. When one person makes a comment, even something mundane, to another about anything in normal conversation, the other person may look at them as if they said something completely foreign. Story 10. An intense sense of urgency, especially around relationship milestones, can indicate a lack of true love. While it is natural to feel excited about a new partner, if you believe the world will end if you spend a week or 2 apart, or if you feel pressured to move in together, meet the parents, get engaged, or marry immediately, you may be experiencing infatuation rather than genuine love. Infatuation is not sustainable in a healthy relationship. Story 11. Constantly seeking validation from others outside their relationship can indicate underlying issues. If there is a history of breaking up and getting back together multiple times during the dating phase, it is unlikely that the relationship will succeed after marriage. Story 12. I married into a family with a relative who was constantly in different relationships. It was predicted that she would be divorced within 18 months. And I was right. Nobody was surprised. She was in her early 30s and had already been married twice, with 3 children from 3 different fathers, only one of whom was from a marriage. The children were 2 years apart, and she planned each one. She cheated on her second husband without feeling any guilt or remorse and would bring a new partner around every year. We all knew she was marrying her third husband because she believed he had money, but it turned out he didn't. Story 13. When someone is insecure, they belittle others to feel better about themselves. I once had dinner with a now-divorced couple, and there was a spicy dish. The wife casually said, "My husband can't handle spicy food." The husband replied, "Whatever, I'm better than you at many other things." Story 14. When their relationship reeks of a mutual infatuation built entirely on vanity, there is no foundation for them to build on, only superficial pretense and shallow assumptions. Story 15. Constant arguing about everything. If you cannot see eye to eye, you are not compatible. It will not work out. Additionally, there is disrespect and abuse. Story 16. There is a significant amount of social media validation and attention-seeking behavior, such as numerous posts praising a partner or an individual frequently sharing attention-grabbing images. This indicates that the poster requires constant external validation. Story 17. Thinking that every woman wants your partner and vice versa every single time you both go out can lead to unnecessary arguments. It becomes even more challenging when they fight with their partner over these feelings. Story 18. When someone spends a lot of time in conversation talking about how happy their marriage is, they may be trying to convince themselves. If someone asked me, I would say I have had an outstanding 34-year marriage to a woman who creates life, love, and beauty wherever she goes. However, I don't feel a constant need to discuss it in conversation. If you know someone who talks about their blissful marriage, they may benefit from some marriage counseling soon. Story 19. I can speak from experience that if the other partner is too ashamed to introduce you to their family, it usually lasts about 3 weeks. Additionally, being told that they're having someone over for intimacy and need the apartment for an hour or two is frustrating, leaving you to find other plans like going to the gym. Story 20. When one is clearly gay but everyone knows except the girl, I met a couple at a doctor's visit. I remember thinking, is she not aware he is gay? Anyway, I forgot about it. They had a child, so I was worried but then thought maybe I am wrong. Hopefully I was wrong. I was not. He was gay and they separated. Story 21. Love bombing in the first couple of weeks is common. It is wonderful to see love, but it is crucial to recognize that you hardly know each other. You have not yet confronted the realities of life and living together. You may be in love with the idea of being in love. Over time, the initial excitement will fade, revealing who you are as a person. How you handle stress, daily responsibilities, and relationships with friends and family is equally important. Story 22. When she is shocked that he doesn't give up any sleep, hobbies, or lower his expectations for domestic services when they have a baby. Story 23. Couples who constantly celebrate anniversaries or milestones in their relationship may be memorializing the past because the present isn't working and they can't accept that there is no future. Story 24. When the husband, who is considered nice by everyone, is mean to her. Or when he is nice until intimacy occurs, except intimacy happens often, so he is frequently unpleasant, but only towards her. When he doesn't bother to show up for her but shows up for others. When he doesn't feel ashamed to subject her to situations that demean her. Story 25. When they focus on the wedding rather than the marriage. I have observed this scenario multiple times in my 50s. Story 26. When one partner is religious and the other is not, it can indicate a larger mismatch in value systems. While interfaith marriages can work, they often come with challenges. Story 27. When there is a significant communication mismatch, it can create problems in a relationship. I knew a couple where one partner was very forthright while the other was more reserved. Partner A would express opinions on various topics, from what to have for dinner to when they should start trying for children. Instead of simply stating their disagreement and engaging in a meaningful conversation, Partner B would subtly imply their feelings, and Partner A would either not understand or pretend to. This dynamic often led to Partner A getting their way, Partner B feeling overwhelmed by every life decision, and Partner A becoming frustrated that Partner B was persistently unhappy. Ultimately, the relationship ended poorly, but both are now in much better situations. In my opinion, communication is both a primary cause of many relationship failures and a challenge that a committed couple can overcome, provided they have the time, willingness, and often the support of a good therapist. Story 28. Couples often express their love for each other and share personal details on social media. Story 29. When one person ignores another and pays more attention to strangers or gives more importance to others than to family. Story 30. Lack of transparency, even if you modify your behavior at the start of a relationship, will eventually reveal your true colors. Usually, that revelation cannot be overcome. Story 31. When one party member puts the relationship on hold, it may be due to work, social groups, or confronting emotions. That person may be trying to distract themselves from underlying issues. When someone starts breadcrumbing, withdrawing, or begins to speak to you in a formal manner as if you are in an interview, it is a sign that the relationship may be coming to an end. Story 32. My sister and her husband got into a massive fight a week after getting married. I don't know what it was about, but he got so angry that he left the house and disappeared completely for 8 months. When I say disappeared, I mean he ghosted my sister, my family, and even his family. No one had any idea where he went or what he did during that time. Despite the trauma my sister was going through, she refused to annul the marriage and kept saying, "He'll be back." Finally, after 8 months, he came home and acted as if nothing happened. My sister also brushed it off and told us to never bring it up again, but I can tell that spooked her because she refuses to challenge him now and just gives in to everything he says. That was nearly 3 years ago, and they are still together with a child on the way. But I can see him disappearing again in a fit of rage and just never coming back at all. Story 33. During the wedding, the newlywed couple disappeared for over an hour to fight, then returned claiming she was crying because she was so happy. Later in the night, they fought again, and the groom proceeded to punch out his new wife's car window. They left separately after the wedding, but she will claim she is happier than ever. Story 34. Extravagant weddings filled with glamour and drama resemble a theatrical production, featuring excessive display and opulence. Story 35. I find it surprising when people describe their relationship as a roller coaster or use phrases like "we've had our ups and downs" or "like all couples we have our fights," especially in contexts like their wedding or anniversary posts. Yes, life can be tumultuous, but your partner should be a source of support in those circumstances, not a cause of distress. Story 36. Get into a drunken argument at their own wedding in a dramatic fashion, including shoving the wedding cake into someone's face. This foreshadows future issues. Additionally, the groom is part of a strict fundamentalist group, and the preacher takes the opportunity to deliver a fiery sermon rather than simply blessing the couple. There was no music or dancing allowed, so I left that event. Story 37. When they constantly post about each other on social media, use pet names, and talk about how one saved the other, it is especially surprising when they have only been together for less than 3 months. I am 41 years old and have been on social media for a long time. Every time this happens, I am usually right about them failing. Story 38. Dating someone shortly after meeting them, taking them on expensive dates that strain your budget, and then posting about each month of your relationship online can lead to complications. When the relationship ends, removing all traces of that person from your online presence can be hurtful. It may sound specific, but many young people engage in this behavior. Avoid it. Story 39. Baby traps, superficial attraction, inability to communicate, dishonesty, keeping the couple grounded. People often discuss the ideal relationship, the number of children, and zodiac signs, but they end up with partners who have completely different parenting styles, cleanliness standards, gender roles, personal aspirations, too many external influences, and a reluctance to communicate and compromise. Personally, I believe that individuals should not be allowed to marry or have children until they have graduated from high school, secured a stable job, and are at least 25 years old. While some argue that 30 is the deadline for marriage, many enter relationships without truly knowing themselves, making it nearly impossible for them to assess their long-term compatibility with someone else. Story 40. When he is out in town and being seen in hotels with other women while she is in another country. I mean, if you'll cheat, be more discreet and show her some respect. When he travels with his other woman and his family. Story 41. Cake in the face. There's a lot of fighting. Today I learned that Reddit has no idea what indicates a couple won't last. I have seen many relationships with all 3 of these signs, and they are still together. They might hate each other, but for some reason they stay together. Story 42. Cursing each other or using bad names, as well as any form of violence, is unacceptable. I don't care if it's a broken cup, a hole in the wall, or an upturned chair. Violence only escalates if it is aimed at you. Initially, it may seem shocking, but if someone doesn't react as expected, they often intensify their behavior. There is no going back. If someone gets angry because they lost a fish and breaks their own fishing pole, that's a different situation. If it is never directed at you, let it be. Story 43. They are criticizing each other for every minor failure or mistake. I have seen a few relationships like that, and it is very toxic. Story 44. I have known people who constantly start dating someone and are head over heels in love, but it often stops within a few months or years after getting into fights over trivial issues. Suddenly, a new relationship with someone else begins, and the cycle starts all over again. I used to have a friend who was like that, well-meaning but far too impulsive and unwise for adult commitment. At some point, he suddenly got married and had a child. I found myself wondering how wise this decision was and whether it would last. Fast forward 5 years, and they are fighting in court over custody. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Story 45. Being someone's rebound or being in a prolonged honeymoon phase can prevent serious conversations between partners. Story 46. They do not talk. They literally do not know each other. They pretend it is normal. That is not a relationship. It is a slow-motion breakup with extra steps. Story 47. A cake smash at the wedding can lead to tension, especially if the groom is excited about it while the bride is not. There is a significant chance that the couple may face divorce within the next few years. Story 48. Statistically speaking, if she is dating me, I have been in over 40 relationships, 6 long-term relationships, and 1 marriage that didn't last quite 5 years. Story 49. An offhand comment a friend made the other day about a couple he saw was, "She never smiles when she is next to him. I wonder why." Story 50. When the friendship group has to tiptoe around bringing up certain topics regarding the behavior of one half of the couple, it creates an uncomfortable situation. My friend got married, and it was understood by the group that we weren't supposed to discuss his bride's oddly flirty behavior with his friend. She didn't cheat during the marriage, but she was abusive. They are divorced now. Story 51. When one of them cake smashes the other at their wedding, against that partner's wishes, there is no clearer sign that they are finished than that. Story 52. Back when I had social media, it was a joint account. Practically screams trust issues right from the start. Story 53. Mean-spirited arguments disguised as banter. Everyone can see the hostility behind the smiles except for them. Story 54. Speaking from experience, if a couple is polar opposites, one will bend over backwards to conform to the other, or it's true love and it's a complete gamble. Story 55. When you know they have different values or want different things, such as children or a career, even if they seem to love each other and find a way to resolve their differences, it won't last. Story 56. We are currently doing very well as the response when I ask how their partner is. It would be even better if this response is given multiple times. Story 57. Constant posting on social media by one half of the couple about how much they are in love and how perfect they are, but silence from the other. Story 58. I witnessed this. The couple just met and started dating. 1 month later, she announced her pregnancy. I have seen couples get together, have children, and then break up. Story 59. When someone who is very careful about how they present themselves publicly, such as verifying facts, tactfully avoiding hurting people's feelings, and remembering party etiquette, begins dating someone who speaks their mind without restraint and causes discomfort by asking overly personal questions in casual social situations, it can create a dynamic that is quite specific. Story 60. They have been together for over a year and haven't had a real argument yet. A conflict is coming, and it will be significant. Story 61. Arguing over trivial matters is common. Some people are simply stubborn and argumentative by nature, which is acceptable. However, I once witnessed a couple arguing heatedly in public about which type of bread is healthier. That kind of dynamic is not healthy, let alone stable. Story 62. Couples who have developed trauma bonds will eventually discover other aspects of their personalities. They may find compatibility in different ways, but the chances are they might not. Story 63. When they can't tell me at least 3 personality qualities about each other that they love immediately, comments about their appearance are meaningless. Story 64. Something I've noticed is that women who harshly criticize their husbands in front of others often do this, especially in couples with young children. This behavior can be detrimental to the relationship. Story 65. One or both individuals are obsessed with social media validation. When their relationship feels more curated than authentic, it centers on appearances. A couple focus more on achieving the perfect couple selfie than on genuinely enjoying their time together is on borrowed time. Story 66. When one starts to show disinterest in the other person, It reflects unmet needs. There can be a feeling that their own feelings are the only important ones. When I observe that they have no common hobbies and are not interested in learning about each other's interests, it can indicate issues such as sexless marriages. I can interpret a lot from the body language evident in the pictures they post online. Some individuals have their partners showing affection, which indicates love, while others lack this connection. A lack of smiling or a miserable expression is another sign of trouble. If their bodies are not touching and they are pulling away while standing together, it often suggests that infidelity may be occurring. While these signs do not automatically mean a divorce is imminent, they indicate that the marriage is in trouble. In terms of online behavior, if a man frequently discusses cars, hobbies, and work but does not mention his spouse, it points to a problem. Similarly, if a woman posts frequently about her children, personal interests, and pets but rarely acknowledges her husband, it suggests something is amiss. I do not consider overposting about personal interests to be a negative sign. Story 67. The spoiled princess who constantly yells at her husband over every little thing. Seriously, why do you keep choosing women like that? Story 68. When couples have a TikTok account, many viewers often label them as toxic and predict they won't last more than a few years. Story 69. Over-the-top birthday posts on Instagram consist of 10 to 15 photos and a lengthy description of how incredible their partner is. Story 70. I had someone tell me that if her boyfriend doesn't propose, she will just find someone else. She eventually gave him an ultimatum to propose. They are now married with children. Story 71. Well, I would say the story I am about to tell is a parade of red flags. I went to a wedding of my wife's friends. The night before, the best man and groomsmen got the groom extremely drunk at a bar, and then they abandoned him. The bouncer had to prop the groom up to prevent him from falling on the floor. A friend and I went and dragged him back to his house, and I drove his car so he would be able to drive to the wedding once he sobered up. The next day, just an hour before the wedding, the bride and groom were posing for photos. What happened next? The groomsmen abducted the groom again and managed to get him so intoxicated that the best man had to carry him down the aisle. While this was happening, the musician and wedding photographer, who were good friends of the groom, showed up to the event. They backed their truck to unload the DJ equipment and accidentally snapped a main support beam at the wedding venue, causing half the roof to collapse. Sensing the chaos, the driver quickly shifted to drive and sped away, tearing up the grass at the venue. With no DJ or photographer, someone found some speakers and connected an iPod for the music, while several guests recorded the wedding on their phones. The groom arrived and had to be supported to walk down the aisle. You could smell the alcohol on his breath outside the venue. The wedding proceeded, but instead of the groom driving off in a 1969 Stingray, the bride ended up doing the driving. A year or two later, the groom received the news that his liver was severely damaged and was advised to stop drinking immediately, or he could die. He managed to stay sober for almost a month, but now he has serious health problems. Despite all of this, they have been married for 12 years, so what do I know? Story 72. Several years ago, I attended a wedding, and the groom's sister walked in halfway through the ceremony. At that moment, I realized the marriage wouldn't last. It lasted 18 months. There were other warning signs, but that was when I and everyone else knew. Story 73. When they are at an event with friends and family, and there are children running around, her face suddenly lights up as if she is receiving urgent messages from her ovaries. Her husband is obviously anxious because he realizes that the discussion about being fine with not having children, which they had when they got married, is no longer applicable. Story 74. When one person talks over another in social situations. Love bombing on social media emphasizes that it doesn't have to be good. It just has to look good. Story 75. Making it obvious when they are having problems online and letting too many outside opinions influence the relationship. Story 76. My cousin's wife divorced him, and they live in Oklahoma. He connected with a high school crush who lives in Oregon, and they got married. He doesn't want to give up his parental rights, so during the weeks he has custody, he flies to Oklahoma and lives in a small apartment with his children. I estimate it will last 6 months. Story 77. When money, appearance, and social status overshadow kindness and integrity in a partner, true connection is never established. Story 78. When friends behave as if it is acceptable for couples to be physically and verbally abusive to one another. Story 79. When one person is sharing every moment of the relationship on social media, while the other person does not post at all. Story 80. A friend of mine brought his new girlfriend to a barbecue. She spent the entire afternoon flirting with every guy there, and he just looked defeated. I gave them a few weeks before they eventually broke up. They lasted another 2 weeks after that. Story 81. When they still have photos of their ex and are unable to delete them due to a glitch in the phone. Story 82. Seeing signs that a person is constantly manipulative or disrespectful early on and ignoring it is a clear indication that they are heading down a difficult path. Story 83. When they have nothing good to say about their partner. I had a friend like this for a while and it was tragic. Her boyfriend was a frequent topic of conversation, and every time she mentioned him, it was to complain. By the fourth time she did this, I asked her directly, "Do you even like this guy on a platonic level? Because every time you bring him up, all you do is complain." Story 84. One person becomes suspicious at any hint of friendliness from their partner towards anyone they might be attracted to. Story 85. When someone tries to hide their opinions and personality to appear as a better partner, the first few dates may go well. However, do not try to be someone you are not, as it will not help your long-term relationship succeed. Story 86. I attended a wedding, and the day after, the bride posted a picture of herself in her wedding dress, while the groom shared a picture of the unique gift he gave to his groomsmen. Immediately, I thought, oh no. Sure enough, they are now divorced. This illustrates that if a couple's excitement about their wedding day is not primarily focused on each other, it is a strong indication that their relationship may not endure. Story 87. Speaking to or about each other with open disdain is unacceptable, especially in front of others. Everyone argues and everyone experiences emotions at times, but contemptuous speech is an entirely different matter. Story 88. Arguing at a restaurant. Either she is taking a picture of the meal, or she is ridiculing him in public for the picture he took of her. Story 89. I asked her to marry me, hoping she would settle down. Surprisingly, it lasted 20 years, despite her trying her best to make it not work. Story 90. 80% of these things didn't even exist when my wife and I were dating. There was no social media at all. However, what did exist were the little arguments and the men who believed they owned a woman. Those dynamics are timeless. Story 91. When one of them is a total jerk or bully, or something minor sets them off to make a big deal out of nothing. Story 92. When they get tattoos in each other's handwriting, a girl and a guy had "Love you, baby," and something else tattooed on their wrists. They lasted less than 6 months and will have those tattoos on them forever unless they get them removed. Story 93. I have seen this happen several times where I live in a high cost of living area, especially with housing. The woman often purchases her own place, separate from the man, through inheritance or savings from a high-paying job. Within a year or two of the property purchase, the relationship typically dissolves. If your long-term partner does not include you in something like a mortgage, it is safe to say they do not see a future with you. You may not be listed on the title, but they should at least include you in the touring process if they want you to live with them. In these situations, it seems the partner never moves in after purchasing the property. It is challenging out there, but people deserve to be in relationships with longevity, not with someone simply dangling a carrot. Story 94. When a couple constantly shares petty arguments online, it is a clear sign that trust and communication are deteriorating rapidly. Story 95. When his girlfriend said she could dig for her diamond and expressed that she wanted him to buy her a ring. Story 96. One day, I was out for a walk when I found a family friend sitting alone in his car in a church parking lot. He said he needed to cool off after a fight. It was then that I knew his marriage wouldn't last. Fast forward several years, and they are getting a divorce. If you're wondering, he is the problem. He is generally a nice person, but when he gets angry, he cannot handle it maturely. Story 97. On my feed, this immediately follows a billionaire's $3 million wedding at the pyramids. I wonder how long that marriage will last. Story 98. This is a flawed concept. A relationship does not have to last forever to be meaningful in this stage of life. It is all about quality over quantity in terms of time. People are often too quick to judge from the outside, so stop putting an expiration date on it. This is not an answer to the question, just my perspective. Story 99. When people move in together right away, it can become challenging. Individuals value their personal space, and invading that space without knowing much about a significant other can feel intrusive. I have witnessed this personally. My former roommate attempted to have his boyfriend move in, and it fell apart almost immediately. The most difficult aspect is that if they do live together and conflicts arise, it becomes incredibly awkward. Story 100. When they discuss their arguments and disagreements in public, they hope people will take sides with them so they can win the conflict. Story 101. I don't know what it is, but my friend's last relationship concerned me. The first time I met her, I pulled him aside and said, "I don't think this will end well. She has a sinister look. She ended up having an affair with one of my old friends in his bed." That was quite troubling. Story 102. My cousin is an only child with divorced parents. Her primary joy in life is Disney World. She is in her mid-30s and has visited multiple times a year since childhood. She got engaged, married, and honeymooned at Disney World. Her husband, a nice guy, was not as interested in it. The marriage lasted about a year. Story 103. Couples that are comfortable enough to have an argument in public or in front of friends and family often show a level of familiarity in their relationship. Every couple fights. It's natural. However, if arguments become so normalized that they occur openly, it may indicate deeper issues within the relationship. Story 104. I read that counselors say contempt is a major sign of an impending divorce. It makes sense. It is difficult to recover from contempt. Story 105. Indifference and not sharing enough can be signs of losing feelings for someone. However, many couples live this way for decades, and it does not necessarily mean they will separate. Story 106. The ones that never argue, suppressing everything inside to keep the peace isn't healthy, and it won't last. Story 107. I was at a wedding where the bride smashed the wedding cake into the groom's face. I think they only lasted a few years. Story 108. They never disagree on anything. They have the same opinions and never get upset with each other. There is a strong possibility that at least one of them is trying to appease the other to avoid confrontation, and it is changing them for the worse. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.